Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk with G. We have everybody's new favorite guest, the insider, back with us, ready with a huge scoop on
Hi, everybody.
UCLA
Actually,
basketball.
two huge
Oh,
scoops today.
two huge scoops today. I wasn't even prepared. He would not tell me the scoops. He wanted the genuine reactions here. We had, I think, 17 viewers of our last one. We got to get those numbers up today. But UCLA basketball is back, baby. Our last podcast ignited the flame. So we're going to start off with Mick Cronin is a god, a super coach, the legend. He's Coach K reincarnated. That's all I can say. You take it away.
I agree. I agree. He's the best coach UCLA's ever had. He is the Wizard of Westwood. Actually,
John
that
Wooden who?
what?
John Wooden who?
Yeah, that was actually there's some controversy about that because I think Sebastian Mack today said that uh, Mick Cronin was a wizard. And
Oh,
apparently, what Mick Cronin uh, says is going to happen actually does end up happening. So yeah, we may have a new Wizard of Westwood. And after our last podcast, I looked up John Wooden. He didn't have losing seasons, but it took him like 15 years to win his first championship. So I agree. Mick Cronin is the next Coach K, and we all have to take a step off of the Govin train and onto the Alex train and give coaches more time and see what happens.
does Chip Kelly also need another 10 years?
Oh, Chip Kelly is done. Chip Kelly is done. He should have been fired after the ASU game. And maybe at the end of today, we should talk about Chip Kelly because there's
We
been a
should. We'll do a little football then, but let's talk about basketball. So on our last pod, we had a lot of like poignant takes, and it was all in motivation. It was all to motivate UCLA basketball, UCLA players. That was all just like Cronin like talks smack about the players to motivate them. So are we,
yeah,
right? And what
yeah,
do we get? We get Oregon State and we get Oregon. We get victories,
yeah,
really impressive performances. Dylan Andrews just because of specifically our criticism, Dylan Andrews listened to the pod, played it on his Beats headphones, and he used it as motivation, and he transformed into Russell Westbrook.
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
I heard, as the insider, I heard some inside knowledge. I heard that
Is
one
this
of
scoop number one?
no, this is not scoop number one. This is just actually it's general knowledge. So actually the players one of them downloaded the podcast and then all of them listened to that download. So it didn't actually count towards
So
the
we should
number.
have like 37.
Yeah, so really we should have 37, but yeah, they're very appreciative for what our takes and our motivation, and they're starting to ask about NIL funding.
Okay.
Actually
Well,
fun.
let's first talk about let's get your take on Dylan Andrews. Like, let's give him his props.
Yeah, Pac-12 Player of the Week. I mean, honestly, I can't believe it. He played amazingly. He's turned the corner. I don't know what's going on. I think he's really found the confidence somehow. I do think it has to do a little bit with Mick Cronin's coaching, and I can go more into that if you want. But yeah, I don't know what happened. He's really locked in.
Yeah, I mean, he's defensively, he played great, super intense lockdown. He was also shooting like mid-range jumpers and trying to get to the rim, which I feel like previous games he was just like passing the ball right after half court and just like loitering on the three-point line, but he was being aggressive on offense and he has a good stroke. I've always thought the three-point shot is like goes too high of an arc,
Yeah.
personally, but the mid-ranger looked good. He was making his three-point buckets, he was being aggressive, and he was actually setting up teammates, which he hadn't been doing earlier this year. Like I said, he was just walking the ball up and passing it off, but he was like creating offense. So I
Yeah.
was really impressed. If that's the Dylan Andrews we get, I mean, he's a starter on UCLA.
Yeah, yeah. He's not I saw some stuff on Twitter or whatever about how he's gonna go in the lottery, but of course not. No,
Wait, who
he's not NBA caliber. I don't
who
know
who said that? Don't follow them.
I don't know who it was, but he's not NBA caliber. But yes, he's improved a ton. In the Oregon State game, he was asked to guard their best player by far, some guy who averages like 22 points a game or something. The guy had like four, and Dylan Andrews was on him for like 35 minutes or something.
Mhm.
And then in Oregon, yeah, he was handling the ball amazingly. He was setting other people up. He was hitting the mid-range jumpers, and that was a coaching decision made by Mick Cronin, who we know watches a lot of tape because after the game, Mick Cronin said, Oregon, for some reason on their screens, they don't hedge. They let the ball handler have a lot of space. And
Mhm.
Deacon can hit those shots all day. And we saw that in the Oregon game.
Well, he hadn't been, but now I mean, he got it back.
True, but I think just having had that good Oregon State game, plus that advanced knowledge of Mick Cronin watching all that Oregon tape and telling DA what to do during the game, I think that was like the perfect combination and allowed DA to really hit those shots. I
And
agree. You wouldn't have hit those, 10 games ago. He really
yeah,
wouldn't have.
I'm impressed. I was impressed. If we get that DA, I think he's a good point guard. Let's go next to our next favorite, the laser Lazar Stefanovic. I'm not gonna lie, I've also become a little bit more impressed with him. He's an all out, all effort guy. He's the best rebounder on the team. I mean, Bona's a sorry rebounder, unfortunately for his size, but Lazar dominates on the glass. He plays with maximum effort. Even when his shot's not going down, he just has such a good looking stroke. It just feels like he should be a better shooter than he actually is. But I feel like he's taking better shots now, and he's more consistent offensively. But I do think his motor, his defense is pretty good, and his rebounding is really key. And he's no longer shooting 22% or whatever insane number he was shooting for a supposed good shooter. He's
Yeah.
he's improved his shooting. I mean, he's playing well. I got to give him his props too. He's a big part of why they've been winning recently.
Totally, yeah. He had 10 rebounds in that last game, two offensive. He played a lot fewer minutes. He only played 33 minutes, which for anyone else would be a lot, but for him is very few.
He's usually playing like 38 minutes a game.
Yeah, I think in against USC he played all 40. And yeah, you can tell like he's not as tired, he's not as winded, his shots his look better, his stroke looks better. I do think a lot of it is like he's not the number one guy, right? Like that's never going to be him. He's not athletic enough, he's not skilled enough.
Although they were basically playing him as the number one guy.
Exactly, yeah, and he can't shoulder that load. Like he's just not good enough. He's very reliable. He's very consistent. You know what you're going to get with him. But he can't. You can't ask him to be the number one guy. And if you do, he's going to shoot 3 for 18.
Yeah.
But in the past couple of games, Bona really stepped up in Oregon State. Da really stepped up offensively against Oregon, and Lazar was old reliable. That's his new nickname when he plays well.
Old reliable. I mean, he's the elder statesman of the team.
Absolutely.
Then we got to see a little bit more from Adai Mara.
Yes.
Um, you know, when we first heard about Mara, we thought we were getting like Nikola Jokic or something, the way he was talked about. But when we first saw him, we were like, is this the same guy who Tracy and David were writing about? Like, I'm
Yeah.
confused. But
Yeah.
I mean, I thought he showed some progress, and I'm like, again, all of these things we'll get into Cronin after this, but like I think he's shown development, and that's one thing UCLA hangs their hat on under Cronin is that the players develop over the course of the year. I'm still baffled when Kenny Nwuba gets any minutes because it doesn't make any sense because you might as well play Devin Williams or a Daimara. Kenny,
Yeah.
is bad, and he's the tallest guy who never tries to block a shot and always tries to take a charge every single time. I don't get it, Kenny. But Adai, he played. He had that connection with Da, which was pretty cool to see. He's a good passer. He's more playable on defense. He was missing some easy shots, but they'll come. He's just not playing that much.
Yeah.
But obviously, you can see the talent's there. And if he stays for 2 more years, I think he's going to develop. He's not going to quite be Zach Edey because I don't think he has that frame to be a man. Zach is just gigantic, but I think he can have more finesse and more of a shooting touch than Zach if he just
Yeah.
stays and grows out his body. So I was encouraged by the Mara minutes.
I agree. Yeah. Beginning of the season, he was more like Moses Brown. He's getting closer and closer every day to Zach Edey. I don't think he'll ever get there, but yeah, he's a very, very talented player. Um, on the Kenny Nuba thing, I do not understand why he gets any minutes. It makes no sense. I don't think he's getting us any closer to victory than Brandon Williams or a Daimara would.
Devin
And
Williams.
developmentally, what's the point? Like, I mean, I love him. He's a great dancer. He really keeps the spirit of the team up, but like there's no benefit that I can see. And also he's a terrible rebounder, a terrible rebounder.
He's horrible, and I just can't. I can't get over the missed dunk against Arizona. I just can't.
I
I
know.
can't deal with it.
I
And they
love
still try to post him up. Like he calls for the ball and they post him up like he's setting up offense. And I'm just like, Kenny, you're a
But
sixth year.
Adai had some really good screens. Earlier in the season, I was worried because he's kind of weak, right? Like I think we said this last podcast, like guards can just really scroll their way around him, but he set some really good screens and he's very dangerous. Did you see those two pick and rolls with a lob
Yeah.
attempt?
Yeah.
Yeah, those looked great. And I'm sure as they work on that more, those will start to hit
The
next year.
rhythm will come. The one flaw with him, other than he needs to bulk up, he
Yeah.
does not leave the ground. Like he can't jump. So like, and he can't box anybody out right now. So he's not a good rebounder. The only way he can get anything is if he like turtles over, but the other guys are just overpowering him. But and I see why Cronin like sees that and then puts Nuba in, but like Nuba gets overpowered very easily.
Yeah.
So you might as well play Mar. And I think Devin Williams has so much potential. He's also skinny, but just give him the playing time. He can jump like a pogo stick.
Yeah.
So but yeah, Mara's encouraging. We got some spot Jan Vide minutes. I was shocked. I was like, I think
Yeah.
to break the Oregon press, you wanted to bring Vide in. What were your thoughts?
So Jan Vide is my scoop number one. Uh,
Okay. Wait,
and
insider scoop number one. Here you go.
insider scoop number one. So apparently the reason, everybody's wondering why is Jan Vide not playing, right? Every time he goes in, he shows a little bit of promise, he shows a little bit of flash, he gets some good floaters,
Mhm.
and for
Which is
some
what
reason,
he was known for, the floaters in mid-range game. Yeah.
right. And for some reason he gets no minutes. And also, our guard play was atrocious for the first half of the season, so even more reason to wonder why he gets no minutes. So apparently, insider scoop from a major inside source is that he does not look to pass. And Cronin will tell him repeatedly, look to pass, look to pass. And all he does is look to shoot. And I rewatched that Oregon game. Every single play he's looking to shoot. Do you remember that one play? It was like there were 5 seconds left on the shot clock. He got around a guy. It was actually a really nice like crossover. And then he gave that little like finger roll.
Yeah.
But it was an air ball and the shot clock expired. And meanwhile, right at the bottom of the hoop was Bona wide open for a dunk, and he could have passed it. So it's true. Jan Vide every single time is looking to shoot. And I think Mick is just not accepting of that. It's interesting because I think we could have used that earlier in the year.
Yes.
Jan Vide could have been our Juzang, but I think he's just, he's frustrated. And I'm starting to think more that earlier in the year when Cronin was talking about how a lot of these guys would be, seventh or eighth player and would never get any playing time. I think that Jan Vide, he was thinking about Jan Vide.
Yeah.
Because
So here's my counter argument to that. I mean, yes, he's looking to shoot. I think he's just like, I don't get any minutes. So when I'm in here, I think he's a young guy and he wants to score. And he's not, it's hard for him to accept like he just has to come and dribble and hand it off, because that's probably what Cronin just wants him to do, hand it off to someone else.
right,
But I see a flaw in that, because like the first 20 games of the year, we desperately needed someone to create buckets because Dylan wasn't creating any buckets. And Jan would come in for like a minute and he would get an open floater. He might miss, but like he has
yeah,
to get in rhythm. And I don't see Jan, like Dylan Andrews not leaving, right? He's gonna come back one more year. I don't
yeah,
see Jan succeeding at UCLA unless Cronin can allow him to let loose as a six-man type like scorer.
that's true.
Uh, because his skill set, the thing I don't understand is was this another misevaluation? Because his skill set coming in was not that he was the greatest passer in the world, but that he could break down guys off the dribble and create his own shots while handling the ball. He was a primary ball handler for his national team, right? So it's just kind of a misalignment. I think the skill sets just don't mesh with like what you were saying with what Cronin wants. And I'm not sure how that'll change,
Yeah.
but I
I,
guess we'll have to see. I bet, but why? I don't see Sebastian Mack ever looking to pass. We
yeah,
can go next, but
I completely agree with that. I do think it's a flaw in, in its mixed stubbornness in not wanting to play Jan Vide. I agree. I mean, and I don't see him becoming a six-man scorer off the bench either, because Will McClendon's going to have that role for the next, 2 or 3 years. So I
well, the thing I will, well, we can get into Will, like he's not a ball dominant player, Will. So I don't think he'd ever become that six man. I'm talking
yeah,
about like the Jamal Crawford type, kind of like just go to
sure.
scorer.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know what Jan is going to be here, but we'll get into
I
that. But what I was saying is like Sebastian Mack, right? He never passes, but he just goes up. So I wonder why it's like, does Mick just envision Jan to be the point guard, so he has to pass, whereas Mack is the scorer, so he has to score?
I
I'm not
think
sure.
Mick is stubborn. I think Mick views it as, you're a young gun. If you're flashy, then you have to take your lumps before you can get the shots. And I found like there's just some people that bypass that, like Juzang and Sebastian Mack. I
Yeah.
do think with Mack, he like Mick Cronin always saw him as like a Cincinnati type, like dog, hardworking player, which is probably true, right? But and also I don't think he really wanted to give Sebastian Mack those minutes, as we know from earlier in the season when he was so
Yeah.
critical of Sebastian. But I think he probably thinks Sebastian Mack is a better player than Jan Vide, and Jan Vide is unlikely to win us the game because he's too trigger happy. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. It was probably a misevaluation, and I would bet at that point in the recruiting cycle of last year, they were just like, we'll take whatever talent we can get because we misfired on all these American.
And remember, all four of these prospects were touted to us UCLA fans. I mean, we're not scouting Eastern Europe and stuff as first round prospects.
Yeah,
So like this makes me question everything. Like we talked about last time, like they obviously went Europe because they couldn't they missed out on all their US prospects. And on the bro boards, it was always like, oh, those guys, we don't want them anyways. They're not Cronin players. That's not true. If they weren't Cronin players, he wouldn't have been recruiting them so hard. Like Stojakovic, Dusty Stromer, like you read those threads too, right? They're not Cronin type players. I mean, come on, he desperately wanted those guys and they pivoted.
yeah,
And they pivoted to supposedly elite international prospects. We haven't seen it yet. We're seeing flashes from a die. I think Berke has a lot of potential. He missed the summer and he's been injured, and I think that's hurt his development a lot. I think Berke is the best international pro prospect.
yeah,
I think a die is probably too tall and too small and too slow, but
yeah.
Berke has potential as a stretch four. We just haven't seen him unlocked fully. I don't know what your thoughts were on Berke from what you saw the last few games.
Agree. He's had a rough couple of games. Mick gets really pissed at him. I
Yeah,
think he's
I see.
just
I can see it through the TV. You were the
yeah.
insider was sitting courtside. Let it be known.
Yeah, I think that Burke is a little bit of a space cadet on the floor. But yeah, I mean, in retrospect, with the Euros being touted as first round picks, I mean, of course it was too good to be true, right? Then if they were first round picks, why wouldn't every other team have already scooped them up? It just
And there was this whole thing about like don't post their name on the boards because someone else will Duke will somehow magically see it and then start recruiting. I mean, give me a break. If they're that good, they'd have already been recruiting
right,
them.
right. Yeah, yeah. I don't
But
know.
you remember those like Tracy was always saying
Yeah,
like don't I was like, what do you mean?
yeah, and that made us more excited, right? It was way too much hype, way too much hype.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was a lot of hype. I like all the guys we got, but let's go to the fourth Euro, who I think this is inside scoop number two.
Yeah, Elaine, yeah.
I think it's Ilan Fidlui. Fidlay.
Elon, yes, sorry.
Ilan Fidlay.
Elon Fiblouи.
Fidlay.
Fiblet, yes, Fiblet. Sorry, Elon, if you're listening. I know you are. So yeah, apparently the reason that he doesn't play that much, this is scoop number two,
Okay.
is he like for example, Mick Cronin will tell him to do one thing and he just won't do it. He'll do the opposite on the next play and it immediately gets pulled. And in practice, he does the same thing. Like he just does
Like
not
what do you mean by that? Like give me an example.
like Mick will say hedge on the screen, or Mick will say switch on all ball screens. And in Elon, how do you say Elaine?
Ilan.
Elon will just like I don't think he's intentionally like being, bad. Like I don't think he's trying to like be a jerk to Mick. I think he just doesn't like maybe he has ADHD or something and it just doesn't register and he just doesn't do it. And Mick gets really pissed, obviously, because that's not how you play Mick Cronin basketball, and he gets immediately pulled. So I think the physical attributes, I know because, insider knowledge, the physical attributes are all there. Mick knows that he's a Mick player and should be starting soon, but it's just the mental stuff that isn't quite there yet.
Huh.
Not sure why that is, but that's what's going
Well, you heard it here first. Get Adderall for the whole team.
on.
I mean, I would zone. Wouldn't you zone out of Cronin so fast? I feel like I would be like, oh, he's yelling again, old man over there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, to preserve my own mental health. Yeah, you
yeah.
kind of have to.
But
Yeah,
I mean, I remember he was deciding between Gonzaga and UCLA. I wonder if he wishes he went with Mark Few up at Gonzaga because
you have to assume that, right? Like,
Mark has a track record of knowing how to work with these guys from foreign countries and developing them.
yeah. If I'm
And
if I'm him, like, I mean, he can't look at the season as a success.
I
Like,
mean,
right?
of all four of them, can any of them like let even Berke, who's starting? I don't think this is what he expected either. He
No.
expected to come in and dominate.
Yeah. Also, I think that Burke didn't start last game. I think Brandon Williams did.
I think I think Brandon Williams might have. I feel like they've been alternating. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Burke only played 14 minutes last game. Yeah, he had a rough game.
Yeah. Like I said, the Euros, the four. Remember, there was also a thread on the best recruiting class UCLA has ever had.
Yeah. That's
I
so
mean, I
insane.
think Tracy even wrote that article. Like, this is the potential to be the best recruiting class. And I'll give them a break because, like, it's not like they're flying to Europe
Right.
just to scout these guys. But
Well,
like,
is anybody like apparently the that guy that went to the Raptors went to Europe like once and it was like months
oh,
ago.
was that it?
Yeah.
He only went once in person.
Or like once or twice. Like
Remember when we saw the highlight reel of Adai, we were like,
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
playing against like fourth graders.
So okay, but you saw that tweet after the game. Ben Bolch, the LA Times beat reporter for UCLA, he tweeted saying that Adimara's father told Mick Cronin that he had no expectation that that Adai would be able to leave UCLA after a year.
Well,
So they
that's
always expected him to stay 2 years. I'm very happy to hear that. I do think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with next year for sure.
I think so too. I think he has a lot of skills. I think of all the four, he has the most potential to dominate in college. He
Yeah.
just the one thing I will say, he looks happier on the sideline. I think he's enjoying himself. I think he's earning some minutes back. And I think what this is, well, we can get into a couple more players than Cronin, but I think what it's showing some of the players who are buying into Mick is like, you will get your minutes. It's
Right.
not going to be as easy as you're hoping, but you'll eventually get them.
Yeah.
Let's go to my next newfound favorite player, Will McClendon, who, I mean, he's shooting over 40% from three.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my issue is they don't get him any shots. I don't understand why. Like,
Yeah.
they don't run any pick and pops. They just he just kind of floats, and like if he happens to be open,
Yeah.
he'll shoot it. But like they don't run any plays for him. It's very odd.
Yeah, it's amazing that he's shooting as well as he is because I feel like a fifth of his shots at least are like end of the buzzer, like last second shot
Mhm.
clock. And we have those plays in our repertoire. Like we were running them for David Singleton, like a quarter
All
of
the
our
time.
plays last year were David Singleton running around screens like Steph Curry and getting a three.
And
So
David has a slow release too, so
yeah,
that's not the excuse.
yeah, it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. I will say you have to admit that offensively we looked so much better last game against Oregon. You have to
Oh,
admit that.
we did, and I
Right
think it's because our point
right when
guard.
you said there was no offensive system, right when you said that,
Well, our
boom.
point guard played great. He played great, and he started the offense, and he created shots. I mean, if you don't have a point guard doing that, your offense is not going to work. But
Yeah.
yeah, our offense looked way better, and our shooting has been. I don't remember. I saw a tweet with someone put the percentage. I forgot, but our 3-point shooting is like top of the Pac-12 now somehow for the
Yeah.
last like 10 games or
100%.
something.
Last game we were 6 of 12 from three, but I think that's Mick. I think that's Mick scouting and having a good offensive system. Remember when we were like desperate for Sebastian Mack to like drive and hopefully would get some free throws? Did that even happen maybe once last game? And it wasn't a desperation thing. It was like in the rhythm of the play.
It was that
So
Marquette game, right? He just
yeah,
drove every single play. There was no other
yeah.
play.
And it almost worked.
It,
But yeah, I mean that like I'm very impressed with the offense this last game. Oregon's a good team. Defensively they're pretty good, and we got 71 on them. I think that might be like a season high as sad as that
it
is.
might be. The offense looked good. It was never like there were still moments where it's like, oh my God, there's no scoring. But like overall, the flow was great. And that gets us to Mick, right? I'll say, at times I've been a Mick hater, and I think I have legitimate reasons for having some skepticism of Mick. His incessant yelling for no clear reason, his insane rotations, his asinine insistence on doing the same thing every single game, expecting different results. But if you look at it over the course of an entire season, I will give him props, right? One of my complaints with Mick is he doesn't adjust well in game and between individual games. But over the course of a season, you can't deny that he is a good coach over the course of a season. He clearly develops his players. We've seen improvement from multiple players this year. I mean, Adai looks better. Brandon Williams is getting minutes and he's looking playable. Mac is looking a little bit more under control. He still is terrible at defense and lows. And then Will looks good and Dylan Andrews is looking good. So you clearly see development. Like you said, the offensive system is looking better. Players are really, no matter how much I hate his yelling, players seem to buy into him, at least most of the players. It sounds like Ilan and Jan, maybe it's not meshing, but most of the other players playing minutes are. And he's probably just so annoying to play against from other teams because the team does play really, really hard. So I think unfortunately this year probably a little too late. They have to win the Pac-12 tournament. I think some of these things could have been fixed earlier, but maybe this is just his process because he knew this year they're not winning the title. He's developing for next year. He might have insight on who's staying, who's going. I don't know, but Mick he's a good coach. I think one of the misnomers from our 17 viewers was thinking me saying Mick was not a good coach. I'm just saying that he's not without his flaws. And I think sometimes people on the bro boards, because of Steve Alford experience, act like Mick is without flaws and some god you can't criticize. I think that's false. You can criticize him. And I think even if you asked Mick, he would probably agree with some of the criticisms, right? If you look back and reflect. But UCLA is not going to hire a better coach, especially with Jarman as their AD. You cannot trust him to hire a different coach, right? So Mick is the UCLA coach. I think I can see him getting frustrated with the NIL situation at UCLA. But I don't know who's going to lure him away. I think he really does genuinely love coaching at UCLA. He wants to bring a national title to it. I know there's always speculation about Louisville, and they're terrible again with Kenny Payne. So the job is probably going to be open in a couple years. I think that's the one place where he might go. But from a UCLA fan perspective, you have to be happy with Mick, especially considering that I trust zero people in that athletic department to make any hires. And let's realistically say, like, if you fire Mick, nobody's going to want to come coach at UCLA because the expectations are crazy. Mick is a good coach, and he's potentially a great coach. He just needs to figure out US recruiting. He just needs to figure it out, and I think he will, but he needs to figure that out.
I agree. I think that he's too easy to recruit against because of the things you said. But on the flip side of that coin, every single player who plays for Mick multiple seasons gets better. Like there's no doubt about that.
Even Kenny, because he was literally uber unplayable. Now he's just unplayable.
Yeah, every single player gets better, and like a lot of them get significantly better. There's a lot of guys that I think left too soon, and maybe his attitude and his anger have something to do with that. But the guys that stick it out and have and put their trust in Mick, they all get better. And I do think that this team, they've showed a lot of heart because I think it's very hard, especially when you have whatever 11 new players or whatever it was. Um, Trying to get buy-in from this like short, 5'5" guy who's screaming obscenities like every 5 seconds. That's very hard. But I think they put it together and they figured it out. So a couple things I'll say though. I'm pulling up the first podcast that we did together right now. I think
Okay.
within 5 seconds.
Hello and welcome.
You say that Mick Cronin's a bad coach. So I'll see if I can find that while maybe we'll take a break. But so okay, that's number one. But number two,
That was overreaction pod. And this is calm down. Just like I finally watched some basketball without my eyes bleeding. And
this is Zen Pod.
this is
Okay,
Zen
so
pod.
that brings me to number two. So we have what, 10 games left in the season, 11 games left, something like that. This is a young team. We are going to lose some stupid games.
Mhm.
And we have to expect that. We can't, at that point, we can't say Mick is a terrible coach. Sure, it may be his coaching had something to do with it, but that's just basketball.
Yeah.
Like the shots are not going to go away. We're going to not have momentum. We're not going to be able to put it together. And that
You
will
can be a
happen.
good coach and have a bad year. That's okay. And if the players show development and they end with the positive streak, like I don't always believe in that, but I think this year, if the players come back, then next year is set up really well. So
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And I think this could be a special year, like maybe we make the tournament.
you're
Maybe
not
we
make.
make
You think we're gonna win the Pac-12 tournament? We have to get that bye. We have to get in the top four then.
yeah, I think we'll get the bye. I really do think we'll get the bye. What are we in the Pac-12 now? Like fourth?
I think sixth. We have to be in the top four.
Yeah. I think we'll get that bye.
We got to sweep Stanford and Cal this week.
We have to. Yes, that's mandatory. But look, I mean, we're playing so much better. The hard parts of our schedule are behind us.
Mhm.
The team is really bought in. So yeah, I'm excited.
How
See what happens.
sorry is USC basketball? The
Yeah.
whole broadcast against UCLA, they always all just talking about Bronny James going to the NBA. I was just like, I know they're not playing with Isaiah Collier, but they got a bunch of 5-star. They got a ton of high ranked prospects, and they look god awful.
Their coach sucks. What's his name?
Andy
That-
Enfield,
yeah, Andy Enfield sucks. He's not a good
but
basketball
he's like
coach.
the best coach in the history of USC basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, recent history.
Such
Uh,
a-
so so your prediction is this is a special UCLA run. UCLA is going to win the title.
No, I think that okay. You're asking, oh God, I don't like this because then people are gonna look back on this podcast and say that I'm an idiot. I think let's say we have 11 games left. I think we win 7
Okay.
at least. Okay, I'll make a stronger prediction. I think that we win 9. I would love to see 9. I think it's very doable.
Okay.
I think we make a very strong run in the Pac-12 tournament. I think we come close to winning. I think Arizona in the end wins, but it's like, a couple
Arizona's beatable though. Arizona is beatable.
for sure. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. A couple bounces don't go our way and we lose. I don't know about the championship game, but I think Arizona will win. And also, like, I'll say this about, basketball being a lot is left to chance and momentum and whatever. In that last Oregon game, we started on fire, right? We were up by like 19 within the first 7 minutes, but then Oregon came back and we were all scared, right? But something about that game, you just knew like this team was putting it together and they were not going to let Oregon win. I had that sense, right? Like these guys, the heart is there, the attitude, the leadership, the integrity is there, and that's what Mick Cronin is all about.
Mhm.
He instills that in people because if they can withstand a Mick Cronin tirade with the F word flying every 5 seconds, then they can withstand an Oregon comeback. I really believe that.
I think they've also clearly learned from they've blown huge leads over the course of the year. Probably frustrated with that, and they're like, we're not letting this happen.
That's true.
Um, and they've been fun games to watch. I'm looking forward to the Stanford game. We'll see how Stojakovic does against the Bruins. We could have used Stojakovic, but Lazar, if he plays like this, he's a legitimate starter. The first half of the year, I was just like, I couldn't believe he was getting so many minutes, but like he shot us out of games, but now he's playing us into games. So
It's too much of the load. I mean, can you believe like this team lost by what 46 to Utah, lowest point in UCLA basketball history, and now they're like potentially gonna
when
go.
are they playing Utah again? I think they might beat them.
Yeah, we play on February 18th. It's coming up.
Okay. All right. But UCLA basketball on the rise. That's exciting. Let's talk about UCLA football because the whole last few weeks, so basically the season was a disaster. The Chip Kelly era has been basically a disaster carried by DTR, literally just carried by DTR. And then this last year, finally, UCLA had an amazing defense with first round pick Laiatu Latu and Chip Kelly, the offensive guru, offensive genius, wonder kid, has the dumbest, most useless, most predictable, most egregious offense I've ever seen played football. He went all in on Dante Moore, who I wasn't at practice. All I see is this guy's 5-star, the next like great recruit. I was like all for it. Like that first game playing some shitty team, Dante Moore looks great. But then literally 1 or 2 games in, you could tell he was like terrible. But no matter how bad he was, he kept playing Dante Moore. Uh, Ruined Dante's confidence, ruined the UCLA season, then put in Garbers. Same damn predictable play calling. I had to see Carson Steele run up the middle every time. I just couldn't take it anymore. And they had a prime opportunity, literally an incredible opportunity. Fire Chip, get Jed Fish or Jonathan Smith. Literally perfect. Bring him down from Oregon State, bring him from Arizona, bring him to UCLA, moving to the Big Ten. Money, recruiting, everything is set up. And I heard that Martin wanted to do it. But Casey Wasserman apparently stepped in. And then you got all these people saying, Chip's done an amazing job. You can't expect better than this, even though Jim Mora was better than this. And Martin, I mean, he doesn't have power in that department. It's all Casey Wasserman. And then I just Chancellor Block, like, didn't want all this. He was like, what's going on? You just extended him, Martin. Why are you firing him now? Which is fair. Like, why the hell did you extend him? And so they didn't fire Chip. Everybody gets hired. Jonathan Smith gone. Jed Fish up to Washington. And then Chip is desperately trying to get out, trying to get offensive coordinator jobs. And I was like, why are these teams calling Chip? But that's not true. Apparently, Chip has been calling the
Yeah.
Raiders. He was calling the Commanders. He was calling all these teams, like, say, interested in offensive coordinator. None of them hired him because we all have eyes, and Chip doesn't run a revolutionary offensive system. So now Chip is back. We got we got Neuheisel still there. We got Trim Drevno still. All these guys. Our defensive coordinator went to USC, and then USC hired a co-defensive coordinator, which is just so embarrassing. And our defensive coordinator, he was just promoted right within.
Yeah.
The football program is a disaster. Chip Kelly is a disaster. The whole situation is just an utter embarrassment to
Yeah.
UCLA sports, and I cannot believe it's happening because this season is obviously Chip is not here after this year.
Yeah.
I don't know why recruits are still signing with not great. We get booms and then you find out it's a Johns Hopkins transfer. I was like, oh my god, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this recruiting class I think is like what ranked 150th or something.
I had the
It's
worst in UCLA history. I don't know.
think it probably
At
is.
least with Jim Mora, you knew you were getting top-notch recruits. Maybe his coaching in the year was, but you would have awesome players. Now
Yeah.
we're just, oh, there was this guy on Twitter. Sorry, before you go. Apparently, his son was a 5-star recruit, and there were like 3 or 4 5-star recruits, 4 or 5-star recruits at UCLA. And apparently, the assistant coaches said Chip couldn't meet them because he was watching film. And hey, here I am thinking, Chip, you're watching film, but you run the same damn play every play call. Why do you need to watch film?
Yeah, I mean it makes no sense. Chip is a complete embarrassment to our school, our beloved UCLA Bruins. And the number one indictment of Chip is he does not represent the school well at all. He does not represent the school well at all. With Mick Cronin, at least when he's playing badly, he still cares about UCLA. Chip doesn't give a fuck
Mick
about.
wears it on his sleeve. Chip is like if he wore a hat, maybe it was there, but he has a visor because he has no care in his head about UCLA.
Yeah, he's just not a care in the world. I guess he wants to, and I honestly he picked UCLA. Remember, it was between Florida and UCLA. He picked UCLA so
You know
that
why he picked UCLA?
oh, let's hear it.
Because Florida would have driven him out of the state.
Yeah, he picked UCLA because he wanted a school where he could kick back and get his 8 wins against the easiest competition in UCLA history and call that a victory. Like that's the problem. He has two things going for him. Number one, we're moving to the Big Ten, and I don't think Jarmond or anyone wanted to cause a lot of, big wake, whatever, cause
He
it.
just wanted Jarman just wants to get absolutely annihilated in the Big Ten, but that's okay.
Yeah. So number one, I think moving to the Big Ten saved him. And number two, he has that, 8 win, 9 win, a couple of 8 win, 9 win seasons. And that totally discounts the fact, everything you just said, in addition to the fact that he does not represent UCLA. He doesn't care. He is anti NIL. He's anti Men of Westwood. He's anti recruiting. He's never said anything like good about the history of UCLA football ever. He doesn't care. And
And he's flippant with reporters and like interviews. Like Cronin gives like good answers.
yeah, it makes me miss Jim Mora. Like it's so sad.
Jim Mora was he had his flaws, but he was the team was exciting. Going to the Rose Bowl with Jim Mora years was fun because they had ballers everywhere.
Yeah, and he was the reason. Jim Mora was the reason. He
Yeah.
made that fun. His recruiting, his like enthusiasm for UCLA, he cared. Neuheisel, I got to give it to him. Like he obviously cared about UCLA. He played at UCLA, he was our quarterback, and he like you can never. Rick Neuheisel is so much more of a man than Chip Kelly because you can never question his heart. Chip
Chip
Kelly,
Kelly is a weasel.
yeah,
Like, UCLA fans were so excited when Chip Kelly was hired. And like there was part of me was like, maybe he can get back to Oregon, but like I'm a 49ers fan, right? I slept Chip Kelly for a year. Utter disaster. Nobody has none of the players have respect for Chip Kelly.
Eagles was
Nobody, huh?
the Eagles. He was even worse.
He was horrible on the Eagles. I can't believe the Niners hired him, and then he was disgustingly terrible. And then like my whole problem is if you're going to be a college football coach, and I get it nowadays with NIL, it kind of sucks.
Yeah,
But like you're mailing in and getting it $7 million a year of UC, like it's not actually UC money, but like ridiculous amount of money. You're the highest paid probably employee in the UC system, right? He's probably the highest paid employee. He probably makes more than Mick, right?
it matters millions. Yeah, he probably does.
He probably makes more than the top psychiatrist at UCLA does, and that's the far more important job. So, I mean, that's you hit it on the nail, right? If you at least had passion and showed that he cared, that'd be something, and like at least put in the effort. He doesn't put in any effort. They don't recruit at all. They recruit transfers. Like they got lucky with Latu because Washington deemed him like unable to play football again, and somehow our UCLA doctor said he could play football again. The opposite of the Jalen Phillips scenario. It's very odd. But like there's never any excitement for UCLA football year. We were all excited about Dante Moore, and you could quickly tell he didn't have the arm strength. Dante
Yeah,
just doesn't have arm strength, and he was the slowest person I've ever seen as a high schooler. Like even terrible high school players are faster than Dante Moore. He's not going to be a good pro prospect. Um it's just sad, and I think they had the opportunity to fix it. That's what I hate the most because Jed Fish or Jonathan Smith, I think Jed Fish would have taken UCLA. He was our interim coach.
yeah,
He would have had passion. That guy and Arizona every year got better, and they care about football at Arizona now. That's unheard of.
yeah. Yeah, it's sad. It's just really sad. The tarps are the biggest representation of that. You know, has the Rose Bowl ever had tarps in it? It's ridiculous.
I mean, I don't honestly expect UCLA to sell out the Rose Bowl every time, but the amount of tarping is insane.
Jim Mora, like when we went to games, there were 80,000 people there
Yeah, the
regularly.
whiteout game, we went to a whiteout game, it was sick.
It was fun, and he created that. That starts with the head coach. And
Now we got to see Garbers play
yeah,
quarterback. I don't know why Sturdivant's still there, and poor
yeah,
guy.
that's but yeah, I'll admit when Chip Kelly was hired, I was so stoked. I remember wearing my UCLA hat. I was proud. You know, we got the best coach available. It's a turnaround. You know, we had the new Wasserman Center. It was going to be like, you know, this big hoorah. But then I remember reading that he wasn't going to run the blur offense, and that was the first like, uh-oh, like he's going to run the same offense he ran in Philadelphia and San Francisco, and ever since then, it's been completely downhill.
And boy, every time someone calls him an offensive genius, I'm like, do you watch any of their games? Because here's it is. Shotgun snap. They do the running backs to the left, right? Shotgun snap, hand the ball, run up the middle. Literally every play. And the quarterback, literally Dante Moore never kept it. I think he might have kept it once all year. So like we weren't fooling anybody. And then the offensive pass routes are comical. Like no pro player prospects should go play for Chip Kelly because you have no shot. Because it's a joke. It's a joke. I hate talking about UCLA football.
And it shows that, you know, the people that were supposedly interested in him were all like his buddies from 20 years ago or whatever.
They're
Like
just trying to
no,
garner interest and like say Chip Kelly's this hot commodity.
exactly. Everyone who actually, you know, knows football knows that you're not going to hire Chip Kelly. His ideas are done. His genius, sure, he did really well at Oregon however
But
many
he
years.
doesn't even use those ideas. That's what makes me the most mad. I don't think we played hurry up once.
Yeah, it's arrogant. It's arrogant. That's like I think he just desperately wants to be an NFL head coach or offensive coordinator. He doesn't want to do the recruiting. He doesn't want to deal with the administration or whatever.
And I don't blame him. Saban quit because he doesn't want to deal with NIL.
Yeah, I don't blame him either, but like your number one job is to win, you know? And if the blur is going to get you to win, then use the blur. Stop trying to be something that like stop trying to apply for a job when you just have this job and just started this job.
You know
You
when
know,
I knew Chip wasn't gonna be it is when his said his number one priority is books then ball. It's books and ball, right? That's their slogan. Give me a break. None of these players are coming for the books. None of them are coming. Your job is to win football games. UCLA, your the 100 players on the school, like nobody cares what their grades are getting. That's the one thing I also have against my problem with UCLA is they are not a serious school when it comes to sports because they have these obscene, stupid expectations of the athletes for no clear reason. Remember the TOEFL? Like these guys are speaking 4 languages, but they can't get the UCLA TOEFL requirement was higher than Harvard. I mean, give me a break. Thousands, like 20,000 kids get into UCLA every year. The
that's
100 kids on the football team, who cares? Just get the best players because that's the most important part of UCLA for the national brand, for getting money, for growing, is not like me and you going to med school there. Like nobody cares, right? It's the football team and the basketball team. I don't understand why they don't have the concept of this. Maybe the next chancellor will, but this whole notion, and this is coming from two people who went to school forever. Like I understand
very academic people. Yeah.
we're academic people, but I'm not an idiot. Like
Yeah.
I'm not expecting the quarterback or the running back to be taking like AP physics. Like just give me a break. They're there to play football and pass their classes. Let them take whatever major they want. But this whole notion that you have to be student athletes, this is not how you win. This is not how Michigan is a great school. You couldn't trick me into believing that all these kids are like meeting all these requirements. Give me a break. They're a sports school, and Michigan Wolverines is famous, and people apply there and want to go there because of their sports. That's why UCLA made their brand in basketball, and that's how it got famous worldwide, right? Nobody, I don't, unless I'm very wrong, nobody got famous from the old David Geffen School of Medicine. Not what was the old building called? I don't know, that crazy health sciences building I hated.
Yes. CHS.
I mean, just this whole notion, and Chip Kelly, I feel like has been that's what he's been banging.
Yeah.
His classes have the highest graduation rates, but who cares?
I don't. Okay, so just the TOEFL, in case our many listeners don't know what that is, test of English as a foreign language, and apparently the UCLA requirements for passing that test are ridiculous and higher than Harvard's. And like one guy, I forgot who it was, but some guy tried to play basketball at UCLA. He was international.
Wasn't it Burke last year?
No, it was like Ian Deku or something like
Oh,
that.
some guy from Ige Demir. Ige Demir. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And apparently he passed the test. Like he passed the test, would have been able to get into Stanford, but UCLA had a higher, like he had to get like a 90% instead of an 80%.
And they
And
wouldn't make an exception. And if we had Ige Demir, like I have no expectations of foreign players, but he would have been one more big body who we desperately needed in the tournament.
yeah, and I remember Mick Cronin's brother tweeting like free Demir. So obviously Mick was excited about him. But what I'll say, if I'm the chancellor of UCLA, like remember the UC Regents picked the chancellor. The UC Regents obviously do not care about athletics at all. Basically, Cal and UCLA are the only UCs with strong athletic
Hey,
programs.
UCSD is now D1.
Yeah, UCSD is in 40 years is going to be the next Michigan, Alabama. But before, they obviously don't care. I mean, look at what they did with the Calimony. They made UCLA pay Cal, or who knows what's going to happen with that. But because we left to the Big Ten, they're going to make UCLA pay money to Cal, which is ridiculous. And UCLA does have a very strong academic brand. If you look like the international rankings of universities, UCLA is right at the top, and that's purely academics. But I'll give it to you that started, I'm sure that the wooden basketball teams had a lot to do with that. And it's so obvious from these, big schools in the country, Michigan, it starts with them, Stanford, Alabama, all these huge football schools, their brand is so much bigger. They make so much more money. It can only go up if their football team is good. And UCLA just does not have that philosophy.
And that's my thing is right. Like you, I understand there's a lot of different schools at UCLA, right? I went to business school there too. Top 25 now, I think. Nah, it's gone down a bit.
Right.
But it's just like this expectation that UCLA is the most elite university in the country is is hurting actually, I feel like, because like everybody applies to UCLA because it's first of all, Westwood's a great place to go to college. I mean, it's a great place to be. You get
Welcome back.
LaMonica's Pizza, Rocco's. What else could you want? First Rocco's, then LaMonica's at 2 a.m.
Rocco's gets a mention every single podcast.
Is it still open? I don't even know if it's still
That
open.
is.
Um,
I was
but
just there.
like part of the experience and like why UCSD sucked compared to UCLA is like the sports is how not all but most students like bond and like have a connection back to their school. You're not going to go back and remember the library, right? Maybe you will, but most people remember their memories from like the football or basketball games. And I feel like the football team needs to, and of course, an on-campus stadium would be great. And I honestly think if they had a 30,000 seat on-campus stadium, it'd be amazing at Drake Stadium. It's never going to happen because the neighborhood won't allow it. Although I don't understand why, because it's only like what 6 games a year, 7 games a year, 7 days a year. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember the neighborhood. Every person in the neighborhood had signs against the hotel that opened up on UCLA. It's like has that
Oh, Bill Walton's the glorious Luskin
at the
Center.
glorious Luskin Center, and now it's built and it's beautiful. And is there any impact whatsoever on
By
the
the way,
neighborhood?
why didn't the Oregon basketball? Why don't the teams just stay at the Luskin Center?
I thought the same thing. I don't get it. Yeah, they were late by like an hour at the game. Yeah, who knows why
They don't get to stay at the W either. I wonder where they're staying because those are the two nicest hotels nearby.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, that was fun. We will be back. The insider will be back again. Hope you're all enjoying share and share this content. This is probably one of the most fun UCLA podcasts. There's not that many good UCLA podcasts. Tracy and David obviously have a good one, but a little more formal. They try to dance around the edges. Here we give it to you unfiltered, real. We got an insider, and we're not afraid to change our opinions. Like if we're wrong, we're wrong.
Yeah, yeah, we admit it. We admit
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
So again, Alex is guaranteeing a national title, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks for listening.